You're listening to the Juice Monkeys podcast.
Where'd you find this?
All right, we're live. What's up, guys? We got Alliance Black Belt Rick James joining us today. Was the ref during the Atlanta tournament for us.
How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How are you guys?
Doing
Fantastic. So obviously we originally connected with that NFC Jiu-Jitsu 13 quartet. I got it in quotations on my notes. Controversial NFC call here. Realistically, ultimately, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It's in the past.
Right.
But I think it'd be educational for everybody listening, like go back, talk a little bit through what you saw, what we saw. And then we want to hear about your upcoming in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. So,
and cool to hear what it's like to ref for a jiu-jitsu tournament. It's something I've thought about doing, not something I've ever done. I'm sure there's a lot of stress involved with that. And I'm curious to hear, like, do you feel like it's grown your jiu-jitsu at all, reffing like that? I feel like it would, but
Sure. So for me personally, I just like to be involved with jiu-jitsu. Like in every aspect humanly possible, podcasts, videos, reffing, coaching, teaching. It's just what I do. It's what I love. It's what I'm best at. It's where I have the best energy. So the more I can get involved in any scenario, the more, I'm going to take advantage of that. So when reffing comes up, I don't have any competitions coming up. I wasn't doing that NFC. And I was like, I'll make some extra money. And I like reffing and I like, just being involved in the sport. So, I take those opportunities when I get them.
absolutely. What is
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what is the stress when it comes to that? I mean, I can only imagine, like Nate said, I haven't done it either, but what's the stress involved with that?
Sure. So it's funny. I talked to my teammates about it, and in order of stress level, I would say reffing is the most stressful. Coaching your teammate is the second most stressful, and then competing yourself is the third most stressful. Like, if you compete and you think the anxiety is high, try coaching your girlfriend at Worlds and see what that's like. That is really tough because, like me and my girl, we train together all day, every day to accomplish our goals together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if she loses, I lose because I know how much we put into it, right? And then when it comes to reffing, the pressure's even higher because people are watching like the minute details of every little thing. And what they don't realize is when you're in jiu-jitsu, like you guys, for example, let's say your coach is watching you. All he's watching is you.
Right.
I'm watching the mat, the score, the timer, the crowd, your emotions. If you don't get hurt, no illegal techniques. Are you getting the sweep? So there's so many variables that I have to watch at one time that sometimes, especially imagine this, you see a sick match, right? These guys are super technical. I'm a jiu-jitsu nerd. So I get lost in the match. I'm like, oh, this is and I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. I'm supposed to be reffing here.
I'll throw it outside, yeah.
Right. So sometimes I'll look at the clock and I'll be like, oh, stop.
Yeah.
So it's just something, it's just like competing. You have to just do it over and over to where you're used to that environment. I'm used to people yelling at me. I've been in a tournament before where he's one of my friends, and that's why he was doing it, but he was messing with me on purpose as the ref. He said, ref, a sweep's 3 points, not 2. What are you doing? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, is it 3? I'm like, shut up.
Man.
You know what I mean?
Brutal.
But then you have coaches that do that on purpose.
Gee, yeah.
And, oh, you missed that. Oh, you missed that. And you're thinking, oh, I missed it. And there's action still going on.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, for me personally, if you've never reffed before, you really should not criticize refs. It is. I mean, Clay told me when I took the job, and I've already known this, but he's like, listen, man, nobody wants to do this. Half the people are going to hate you. You're not going to get whatever you think you're going to get out of this. It better just be personal because everyone's going to hate you. You're going to make some kind of mistake. They're going to blow you up about it. It's not, there's no glory. And I was like, I'm not doing it for the glory. I'm doing it for the love, and I'm all good with that. Not, I'll take the criticism. I have no problem with that.
For sure. That being said, tell us about, like, let's go right into that NFC quartet, your side of the controversial call, what you saw, what happened, and then, like, as a result, like the following on couple of days, stuff like that.
Sure. So leading up to that tournament, I probably hadn't reffed in about 2 years. and we went over all of the EBI rules. But when you're going over the rules, you're not going over the intricate details where in this specific scenario, if his elbow slips here or whatever that may be, you're not getting those extreme details.
Right.
And so that was the first match of the night, right?
Yep.
And it went to EBI overtime, and I was like, oh, man, the pressure's on the very first match, which actually I was excited about it because the matches went good and they were all submissions and things like that. So I'm like, oh, this is easy. I don't have to worry about points, disqualifying anybody. I was like, boom, winner, boom, winner, boom, winner. And then it got to overtime and I'm like, okay. Focus on the problem was, and it's like what you choose to focus on, right? And I was thinking too much in my head about getting the exact time of when he breaks, because I was thinking, okay, if it's a millisecond slower or faster, then the other person is going to lose. So I have to be pinpoint accurate for when I want that escape to happen.
Right.
And I was a little too, in my opinion, after watching it back and thinking about the emotions of it, I was a little too trigger happy with that. I should have actually let it go an extra half a second, extra 2 seconds to make sure it's accurate rather than getting the very specific time.
Right.
So that in my head is where I made the mistake. So when I was watching the position, I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, an escape is when both shoulders touch the mat and he's out of the position. But I lost track of he's in a rear naked choke. I saw it and I was like, okay, but he's escaping. And he wasn't threatened by the choke. He wasn't defending it really. He was just sliding out. And I see it. I was like, if that second shoulder touches, he's out. If that second shoulder touches, he's out. Time. And I was like,
yeah,
that was a little too fast. I should have, right?
Right.
And so right afterwards, right afterwards, there's a lot of haste to like, okay, go to the next thing. All right, switch them out. So I was like, okay, cool. They're done. Boom. I didn't have time to think about it. Didn't have time to process it. Okay, you guys switch. They switched. They didn't question anything. Nobody questioned anything. So I was like, all right, we're good. It didn't even cross my mind at the time that I was a little bit short on that. Right.
Right.
And then they did the match and I raised the hand and he was confused. And I was like, wait, why is he confused? And he's like, I thought he tapped. And I'm like, what do you mean you thought he tapped? And so there was a whole bunch of confusion because I didn't know that your team thought he tapped.
Right.
Which that never even crossed my mind in the entire scenario. Even Clay didn't know that.
Right.
But then that creates a second problem because if you thought he tapped, then all you have to do is not tap.
Right.
So you change your strategy. You weren't trying to escape.
Yeah.
Which we didn't even know that you guys thought that. We thought you knew that I called it as an escape.
Right.
So then it was like a double,
just a huge miscommunication. And I, like you said, there is that haste, like, all right, switch, go, get back into that new position.
I think the whole tournament started slightly late too. So I'm sure that added to it. Probably.
Yep. And here's the other problem, or not problem, opportunity for improvement. But every ref at the NFC had been criticized heavily previously before that. Just like every other ref, dude. If you go to IBJJF, if you go to any of these tournaments, these people make major mistakes. I've seen a teammate of mine lose worlds because a ref made a bad call in the finals. So, it happens at every level. But all those refs had got replaced, right? So coming in, the new refs, which were brand new for this first event, we were like, okay, let's make this the best possible experience. Let's make sure we get everything accurate. There's a lot of pressure on us to like bring quality back and not make those mistakes, right? So that kind of added to it as well. And it was a little more stressful than it honestly needed to be. But, at this point, it is what it is. I went back and, after that happened and he told me, and I was like, I don't know. I went back and we went and watched the video. I went and watched it with Clay and he played it back and he's like, all right, what were your thought process here? I said, my thought process when I was watching this is I saw his second shoulder hit and I made the call. I don't think it was wrong, but there was a small detail about if he still has the opportunity to retain the back, then it keeps going, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically based on his elbow. If he would have escaped his elbow to the mat, then he would have been turned facing him, and then there was no chance. But his elbow was still on him, so technically he could have forced his shoulder back up. He could have chair sit, and he could have brought him back over.
Right.
So that was the ultimate detail that got missed. I got called it a little short, but I told Clay, I said, I'll do whatever you want to do. I'm okay with resetting them. I'm okay with canceling it. And he's like, nope, we have to stick with the call that was it was called. You don't really reset matches like that. And so I said, okay, then.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to your coach and I was like, look, bro, I'm pretty confident I made a mistake. I need more time to like digest this because I'm in a hurry right now.
Yeah.
But there's nothing I can do about it. He said I made the call. We have to stick with the call. So it is what it is. So, my hands were tied. And unfortunately, the coach was mad, but I was like, I can't, at this point, I'm the middleman between the NFC and you.
Like you said, I mean, or like we all kind of agree. It's in the past. It doesn't matter anymore, but it's cool to get it out there and show like your point of view. And with all the stress, the added stress of all new guys, new refs being put in there for this event because the old ones like had some stuff going on. I didn't know that. That would definitely add some stress for sure. You just want to be like pinpoint accurate.
Yeah. I also, ultimately, I didn't care that much.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, it matters. I'm a competitor myself. Being quote unquote screwed by a ref is like the worst thing ever. I've been there plenty of times, trust me. But the thing I try to tell people is even I hate even saying this, but you can't let it go to the ref's hands, right? You got to finish the match when you have those opportunities. And that's what I told Odyssey too. You got to finish because anything can happen. And the tough part is like, think about this. I made a call in a split 1 second decision, not even half a second decision, and that determines the whole match.
Yeah.
And I can't take it back. I can't start over. So that's the other thing that's tough about reffing is that points, I could be like, hey, back the points back down. My bad. I made a call. But if I make that stop, how do I even restart? It's over. It's a permanent decision. And so, I think those are that's the unique rule set and this unique thing where it's like, you got to be extremely accurate with your calls. And, that was a lesson that I learned. And, something I'm going to grow on and study a little bit more and a lot of the tapes and, watch unique scenarios like that where like, okay, he's escaped, but maybe the knee is trapped or whatever the scenario may be and just get more accurate with some of those minute details.
No, that's a really interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but I guess it is a lot like competitions in that you learn from everyone. So, I mean, matches, you go back, you learn like, I messed up there. I'll fix it next time.
Yeah, it happened to me in I believe it was the finals. I believe it was the finals of the quartet. In one of the earlier matches, a guy sat guard without a grip. Well, in this event, it's a penalty, right? But I missed it. So because what had happened is in the match before that, in the first 13 seconds, a guy blew his knee out. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No.
Yeah, so they went to go do a takedown, and a guy blew his knee out, and he was screaming, and I was like, oh, my God. And I grabbed his knee, and it popped back in place, and he was panicking, and it was just like one of those moments where the whole crowd, everybody stopped. And I was sitting there with him. I'm like, breathe, bro. I got you. You dislocated your knee. He was like literally in adrenaline panic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got him to calm down, got him off the mat, and I was like, whoa, I don't even know how I recover from that. I've never been that close to a catastrophic injury like that. Like, I'm a ref. I'm standing right next to him when it happens.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, my gosh. And it was loud. And so I calmed everybody down. I'm like, hey, guys, we're going to take a minute, let everybody breathe and relax for a second because, one of our brothers, no matter what team you're on, one of our jiu-jitsu brothers just got a catastrophic injury. And, that's the worst thing that can happen to anyone.
For sure.
And then right after we restart the match, the guy pulls guard without grips. Well, I'm thinking that was terrible. I can't believe that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then as I was thinking about it, I was like, wait, I was supposed to penalize that guy from sitting guard. So I didn't. But he finishes the match, whatever happens. The very next match, because, he won, and then he stands back up and fights the next guy. The next guy comes in, and he does it again. Well, this time I catch it, and I penalize him. Because I just learned from my last match, like you're talking about, I had to evolve. But then the problem was when I ended up DQing that guy because he had another penalty, he was confused because he was like, wait, what did I get the first penalty for? I said, pulling guard without grips. And he goes, but you didn't call me on the first one. And so then I had to explain to him, I missed it. And so it's like, even if you do fix the rules, you're like, you didn't call it on me last time. I'm like,
never going to make everybody happy. It sounds like you had a really stressful night, just with everything happening. rough
I would
night
say
back.
ultimately, it was just those two scenarios. Everything else was really fun, was really exciting. But, you know, every ref I talk to, they've never had a perfect game.
Right. Mm.
So it's kind of like baseball. You know, you bat 300, you're like, hey, I'm in the Hall of Fame.
That's awesome, man. I mean, yeah. Regardless, those two things, even if it is just those two things, that's a lot. You know, even to be that close to that catastrophic knee pop or whatever. You say you put it right back in place?
Yeah, he dislocated his knee. Unfortunately, it popped out sideways, and you know, I was able to kind of stabilize it, like center his leg a little bit because his leg was like cocked to the side, so I centered it just because. But it still had a huge bulge on one side, and the doc came over. And so we had to carry him off. We set him on the couch in the back, and very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah. Shout out to that guy. I hope he's doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say that was in the finals?
Yeah, it was in the finals.
Oh man, that's rough.
So then let's just add to the stress I have. Now I'm thinking, okay, so not Odyssey's team, but the other team, I think it was Integrity or something like
Integrity, I think. Yep.
That guy blew his knee out. Odyssey, being those guys are very high quality people. Greg was like, hey, listen, we'll DQ our guy too as an even split, and we'll just go into the finals with 2-2. And I was like, wow. But obviously the NFC is like, no, you can't do that. That's not, we got to follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So they fought the match, and Integrity got down to their last guy. Well, they were already a major disadvantage by that guy getting hurt, right? And so I was thinking, okay, let's try to make this the best last match we can. Well, the last guy stalled his ass off. Integrity. He was gassed. I think it was Heath. Gassed, wasn't fighting that much, and gave him the penalty. Boom. Stalling, right? Well, if I give him a second penalty, he gets DQ'd. Well, in my head, I'm thinking, do I DQ Integrity in the finals after they just had a guy blow out his knee? We end the entire event on a DQ. The crowd's mad. Nobody enjoys it. But it's my job.
Yeah.
Like Clay said, he's like, no, you DQ him. And I'm like, but is that good for jiu-jitsu? I don't think it is. So for me, I took that for Clay. You know, he was like, man, you should have made that call. And I was like, I did it for the environment. I did it for the whole event. I wasn't going to DQ a guy in the finals. I just let him stall and just fight the best he could and just let it end the way it was. There's still 2 minutes left, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Not doing it. And then the match ended, and I was like, okay, thank God. I mean, Odyssey still won, and everything worked out the way, but they were like, why didn't you DQ him? I'm like, man, it's the finals. I'm not, you know.
Is that really what we want?
Is that really what we want? Right. That's exactly right. And we want to see a fight.
Right.
And Odyssey, do they want to win on a DQ? Of course not.
Right. Nobody does. Yeah.
Well, dude, all this was
I know, right?
eye-opening, educating, educational. There's a lot of good stuff here. Let's go back, talk about your beginning in jiu-jitsu, like where you started, who got you in, when year, all of it. Like, let's begin where your jiu-jitsu started.
Sure. So funny thing is, and I love this, the first UFC, November 12th, 1992, is on my birthday. My birthday is November 12th. So I always say the two goats were born on the same day. Me and
Nice.
but the way it started is I was a wrestler in middle school and high school. I was just the wrestling kid. I loved playing like that. I loved roughhousing. That was always my deal. Coming up, me and my best friend Matt used to watch WWF, WEC, all the wrestling stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And Ken Shamrock eventually came and became one of the champions there. If you guys know who he is, he's an old school UFC guy. Yep. And he would always do the toe hold. And then we saw, the scorpion, the figure four, all these like leg lock submissions. And so me and my buddy would put on fake wrestling events, right? Well, I always liked the submission ones because he would do the high flying stuff. And I'm like, you're an idiot. I'll let you jump off the roof and land on something. And he was cool with it. He was, Yeah. So then it eventually evolved as we got older to where we're going to play this game called Submit, where we're going to wrestle until the other person gives up. And that could be the rear naked choke. That could be some kind of heel hook, whatever. But keep in mind, we were doing WWF moves. We weren't doing real jiu-jitsu moves, nor did we even knew jiu-jitsu existed.
Yeah.
And then we heard that Ken Shamrock was having a real fight. They're like, no, he's going to fight, no holds barred, no rules, and fight to the death. And we were like, what? We're like 14 years old. So to me, Ken Shamrock was like the baddest dude on the planet. He was jacked. I was like, he's going to kill everyone. And so we went to Blockbuster and we rented the UFC back in the day when you had to go to Blockbuster in the back room. We rented it and watched it, and Hoist Gracie dominated everyone. When Hoist Gracie beat him, I think he beat him by triangle, if I'm not mistaken. We were just like, what is going on here? Like, I didn't even think that was possible.
Right.
So started watching more UFC just to follow Hoist and like see what champions he was going to beat this time, you know. Then eventually I moved into an apartment with a couple of buddies who trained jiu-jitsu. One was a blue belt, one was a purple, one was a brown belt. And they would tell me about it all the time. And when we were watching, they would show me some moves. And I was like, this is like crazy. I didn't even know you could do this legally. Because back then I was like, how can you like fight someone for real, like without getting in trouble, right?
Right.
And so they would always tell me about Alliance, and this is a place where you go and get killed with all the killers. They got all these cool gyms. So I was like, yeah, you know. And then one day, my ex-girlfriend at the time came home and was like, hey, I saw like a jiu-jitsu sign on the store when I was driving by. Do you want to go by there? And I was like, yeah. And so we went by there, and it was a karate place, but they had a blue belt guy teaching jiu-jitsu. And of course, I didn't even know what a blue belt was. So I don't know if that's good or bad or whatever. Started training $60 a month, started training with them, trained with them for about 6 months. Eventually, after my first month, I went to a Naga event. Of course, you got to start out with Naga, right?
For sure.
Yeah. And the funny part about that is my coach didn't want me to. Don't do it. You're not ready. Don't be. And my buddies were like, nah, you're ready. You're ready. You're like, kind of tough. Like, you're a scrappy guy. Like, you can handle it. White belt Naga, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I won second in Nogi and Gi. And I saw how big jiu-jitsu was. And all the people and all the teams. And I was like, this is a little, you know, culture that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And so then I started to fall in love with it. I started to research more, started looking more, and I started learning about other schools and what's going on. Eventually, I moved away from that school and ended up going to Tiger Academy, which the guy's name is Eddie Camden. It's a Gracie University type, right? Went there, studied for a year, got my blue belt, my Gracie Combatives blue belt, which everybody talks trash about, which that's a whole nother conversation. But let me tell you, that was one of the best experiences because they taught me self-defense. All I spent my entire first year, 2 years on was defending myself, getting out of bad positions. And that's something that a lot of people get robbed of these days because their first day, they're falling back for a heel hook or something of that sort, right? And so when they do get in those positions, they don't know how to respond properly because they haven't been there enough and studied them. So learning under the Gracies on that real self-defense, I think was beneficial to my long-term sport career as well because I've learned about those positions at a very technical level.
Sure.
Eventually ended up moving to Orlando for work and did a Google search and said jiu-jitsu near my work. That's every time I move, I'm like, where's the closest gym? That's where I'm moving, right?
Yeah.
Alliance, and I'd heard about Alliance. I'm like, oh, that's really tough, and I'm going to go get beat up there, and those guys are so good because it has such a big name. Saw a Brazilian guy. He'd won like 5 or 6 championships. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but it's got to be good, right? I didn't even know I did jiu-jitsu at the time.
Yeah.
Went there. Bruno Malfacini was my first coach, who's 10-time Hall of Fame, Alliance champion. Followed him and saw this 125-pound guy who's 5'3", just dominate everyone and beat me. And I was like, wow, jiu-jitsu is powerful.
Yeah.
And he started competing, or he was competing at Worlds, so he's fighting Kyotera, and our whole gym would go watch. They're like, hey, Bruno's going to fight in the big stage. Let's all go watch. And I'm like, what? And so I'd go hang out with him, and we watched, and that started to build my love for it. And I was like, oh, this is like a real sport I can get into. Because my problem in life is I played sports my whole life. Well, from 22 to 30, there's not much adult sports you can play at a real competitive level.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when I started learning about jiu-jitsu, I'm like, oh, this is where I can get back into fighting and doing my competitive thing again. And so once I saw that, like I got hooked, and then I started training more, and I wanted to be a champion and, train with Bruno for a couple years, eventually moved back to Atlanta. And once you experience and a lot of people experience this too, once you experience Alliance training and the level and how hard they roll and how long they roll and the intensity, it's hard to go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So while I wanted to come back to Gracie Academy because I love he didn't compete enough. He wasn't a competitor. He liked self-defense. I was like, I can't go back to that. I'm already on the competitive level. I already trained an hour a day with the highest level guys. I got to go back to Alliance. So I went to Alliance, met Jacare, met Leo, fell in love with it, and then eventually grew my way from a blue belt, becoming an Uki, becoming a part-time instructor, growing all the way up to black belt, becoming a full-time instructor now. So I've kind of, worked my way up at Alliance, which has been an awesome experience.
That's awesome, dude. Good stuff.
12 years later, here we are.
Yeah, how long have you been a black belt? Just curious.
I've been a black belt for a year and a half. So I got it in December of 2021. It took me. So I had three. I always tell people I have 3 goals in jiu-jitsu. My number 1 goal in jiu-jitsu is to do it forever. I don't care who you are. If you are listening to this podcast, nobody remembers who the world champion was in 2013.
Yeah.
Your number 1 goal should be able to do jiu-jitsu when you're 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. If you're not doing that, you are making a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah.
So for me, in every decision I make, training, competition, whatever it is, I think, can I do this forever?
Mm-hmm.
And if I feel like I can't, I give up the sweep. I tap on the submission because that's the number 1 goal. And I've had so many catastrophic injuries that have kept me out for years. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah, for sure.
My second goal was to get my black belt before I was 40, which I got it when I was 38. And then my third goal was to get my black belt within 10 years. So, which I accomplished both of those goals. So I knew that I trained at a higher level, meaning like volume than most people. And I said, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to get it in 10 years, like everyone else. Because I felt like that was like a cool accomplishment. Anyone 10, 8, 6, 4 years is pretty good.
For sure. Yeah. I think we're going on like 9 years and we're not there. So definitely what you said about the volume. And I mean, we've had the breaks, college, military, been doing it, like you said, off and on for a little bit. So the volume fluctuates quite a bit.
And that happened to me too. It's just when you have the opportunity, you got to take advantage of it. I even tell our students right now, like, guys, if you're on the mat, why aren't you doing something? You're here 20 minutes before class, 20 minutes after class. That's 30, 40, 60 more reps that you're not getting. I was always the guy when I first came in for warm-ups, I was working on the side with a person.
Yeah.
And then I do class and afterwards I work on some more moves. So when you think about that and how much more volume I've got than most people, like it's substantial. I do 2 classes in a row. I'm coming for 6:30 and 7:30 class. Right. Yeah. And some people can do that for a couple of weeks. They're like, oh, I did 2 classes. I'm like, cool. I did that for 5 years straight.
Yeah.
That's when you get the real volume, right?
For sure. Yeah. Curious I guess, are you still active competing? And if so, like how often you compete? What's your goal there still?
Sure. So I broke my arm last June at an NFC in a black belt match. Unfortunately, made a mistake. So I was out for about a year after that. I'm 80% recovered, I would say. And so I was like, in May, I'm like, what actually happened is, the bug was getting to me. And I was like, I can't wait any longer. I know my arm is hurt, but like, I need to get out there because I'm just a better person when I have a goal like that to go after.
Mm-hmm.
I eat better. I compete better. I train better. I try harder. If I don't have a goal, I get lazy. I'm like, but what do I care? Yeah. I need the pressure of knowing that someone's going to try to hurt me, try to embarrass me, try to put me on a YouTube video to bring the best out of myself. So for me, I try to sign up for tournaments every 3 to 4 months, every 6 months, something like that. It just depends on my work schedule. I own my own business, so sometimes I can't do it. But I try to at least do every Atlanta Open, every Pans, and every World. So, every 3 months or something like that. So right now we got about 2 months to go for Master Worlds. I'm going to try to get my first major medal. At Brown Belt, I lost in the quarterfinals, my 4th match. Was so close. That's the one that kind of slipped away from me, unfortunately. So now, first black belt match. I had my first Atlanta Open in May. I believe it was May. Yeah, did pretty well. Lost by advantage to which was cool. Think about this, dude. Black belt is like a whole nother level. I can't even tell you.
Sure.
My Atlanta Open first match was against the number 1 guy in my division in the world. 1 World, 1 Pans, 1. And I'm like, what is he doing at the Atlanta Open?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I ended up losing by advantage. And so I was like, I can kind of hang with these guys. Because, again, I'm just a hobbyist. Like, I'm not, I compete a lot, but I'm not like these guys. That guy had 400 something points. I got 13.
Yep.
So I lost that match, and I was disappointed because I thought I could win. And there's about a 6-hour gap for the Open, right? And there's only 4 people in my division, so I automatically qualified. Well, me, I was already mentally defeated. I was like, lost another one. When am I ever going to win my black belt match? Blah, 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 blah. Well, my coach was like, hey, Rick, we need somebody for the absolute because one of our teammates got hurt. And he's like, he can't do it. So I signed you up. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, I signed you up. And I was like, so then I asked my girl, it was on our anniversary. So me and my girlfriend, Brittany, we met at the Atlanta Open on May 6th. It's so funny.
Very cool.
Yeah, we met at the tournament, and we've always had our anniversary on May 6th.
That's cool.
So I asked her, I was like, hey, we can either stay for the Open tonight till like 8 p.m. or something and do date night tomorrow, or we can leave and I'll do no-gi tomorrow because I had signed up for no-gi. She was like, let's just stay. And I was like, shit, I was hoping you weren't going to say that. I'll be honest with you, I was hoping you weren't going to say that.
Yeah.
So then I get ready for the Open, and I look at my division, and I'm like, oh, God, a middle heavy guy. Like, anxiety started building. These guys are – because I'm normally a middleweight, but I couldn't make weight in time, so I did middle heavy. And I'm like, these guys are so much stronger than me. I'm going to get ragdolled in front of everybody and get embarrassed. And I went out there and had one of the best matches of my life. Got the guy down, got him in turtle. I made a mistake and fell off the top, but I ended up getting collar sleeve, immediately attacked the triangle. He postured, went to omoplata. He postured. I went to the matrix and then ended up finishing with a knee bar. And I was like, oh my God, I just submitted a black belt.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah.
So then I was like, hey, like I'm feeling pretty good now. Like, and everybody picked me up. So then going to the next match, I was hyped. I was like, dude, luckily my next match was a lightweight. So then I was on the upper end, and the guy made it. Hopefully my competitors are not watching this, but he made the mistake of pulling guard with no grips and just sitting, which for me, I like the over-under. I like pressure passing. Alliance is a pressure pass gym. So he just gave me too much opportunity to pin his knees on the ground, drive my shoulder, and having a 30-pound advantage, plus being in one of my power positions, I was able to pass the guard, take his back, finish the match. So I ended up winning 2, 1 bronze in my first absolute at black belt, and that so far has been my biggest accomplishment.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's
man.
awesome.
That is really
So
cool.
I was riding that high for a while.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
I love that he mentions you mentioned you're a hobbyist in jiu-jitsu, but you compete at all the big tournaments, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool. I appreciate that. I like the, you're competing at Pans, Worlds, all the big NFC cards and stuff, but I'm just a hobbyist. I like that. It's humble. It's, you're doing all the big things, That's
I like to keep myself challenged, and I think that's the important part. I need that challenge, and I need that push. And I always tell people, jiu-jitsu is the art of being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And there's no more uncomfortable situation than being in a tournament with the highest anxiety. That's where the best of me comes out. So I need to find out. And somebody, I think it was Joe Rogan who said, or it might have been Jordan Peterson, I don't remember, but they said one of the biggest crimes that can happen in a man's life is not truly knowing what his body is capable of. And I thought about that. I'm like, you know what? I don't know how strong I could be, how fast I could be, how powerful I could be. Maybe I'm just insecure and don't realize I could be Leandro Lowe or Gordon Ryan or whoever if I just really tried to push myself to that level. Now, I'm not going to that level, but within my own, I want to see how good could I be? And I think as I got better at black belt and I gained more confidence and I trained with other black belts, after I won that bronze medal, the first thing I said to myself is, I belong with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was just some random black belt in Georgia going against all these Brazilians, right? Who this is their whole life. And I actually won a couple matches and I'm like, I can do this. If I just put more effort, put more focus into it. And, it's not as unattainable as people may think it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that, dude. Well, we are running short on time, but before we let you go, any plugs, any shout outs, anything, if, I see you get your Instagram handle right there. Anything else, any shout outs before we go?
So check me out, ATL Rick James on any platform, mainly focus on motivation and encouragement. I believe that any jiu-jitsu is good jiu-jitsu. I don't care if it's no-gi, Gracie jiu-jitsu. If you're trying to get better as a person by using jiu-jitsu, I fully support that 1,000%. Shout out to Alliance headquarters, my brothers, my training partners, Leo Noguera, all my coaches, everybody there. I wouldn't be here, wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for you guys. Just like you guys know, we live and breathe and eat and sleep together. And, I just appreciate all those guys and everything they do for me on a daily basis. And I'm about to go see them today and see if I can choke a couple of them and get choked, right?
Absolutely.
Great part about jiu-jitsu is some days you need to get choked and some days you need to choke some people. So you just show up and jiu-jitsu will give you what you need for the day.
Absolutely.
For sure, man. Great having you on.
Absolutely appreciate the time, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you later. All right, so our second guest for today is NEF photographer and jiu-jitsu black belt Ben Moore. How you doing, bro?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. I feel like we have a lot to get into, man. So as I stated, NEF photographer, how does one get into doing photography for the NEF?
I was messaging Matt Peterson, the owner and manager of NEF, for years, and they had a really dedicated, stable photographer for all those years. And I'm never somebody who wants to step on anybody's toes in the industry. So I'm like, yeah, let me know when something doesn't work or you need somebody new. And then it was about 2 years ago. He said, hey, the photographer can't do the next couple shows. Can you fill in? Maybe we'll test you out. I'm like, yeah, I've wanted to do this for so long. And, I knew a lot of fighters. I trained with a lot of their coaches over the years, and it sort of slotted in really easy for me to just start to work with him and the company. And it was really fun. It's been a ride ever since.
Absolutely. It seems like it'd be like a really cool gig.
Which came first, actually, the jiu-jitsu or the photography? Yeah.
Good question. I did jiu-jitsu. I started at 17 and I started doing photography at 22. So probably, photography had a 5-year after that. But jiu-jitsu, I started at 17, just after I did wrestling in high school. And that was sort of what jiu-jitsu sort of started me with a passion of life things, and photography just sort of added on to that. Sort of jiu-jitsu kind of does left and right brain at the same time, and photography is definitely more of the creative side. So it's kind of fun to see, photography is helps me with jiu-jitsu creativity and vice versa. You can sort of problem solve on a field when you're at a wedding, and jiu-jitsu at the same time, you're problem solving on the mat in real time versus somebody else who's trying to do the same thing. So
absolutely.
Great question.
So when did you make the switch, if you will, or was it right off the bat from photography to jiu-jitsu and MMA photography?
Do you guys remember his last name was Richard. He was a photographer in the jiu-jitsu scene, Port City. He was a purple belt at the time. He was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu photography. Gabriel Richards photography.
Yep.
He was doing a lot of tournaments back in the day. I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's, hanging with his family. But he got me into doing a lot of I've been doing events before that, but just not jiu-jitsu events. And he was like, hey, let's go to tournaments, shoot it together. You can either be my editing guy or my shooting guy. When I'm editing, we'll just tag team. It'll make my life a lot easier. And I said, yeah, let's do it. He got me into, you always need mentors when it comes to a lot of these skilled things that aren't, innately taught in school, like photography or any skilled labor or, things like that. I've had a lot of different mentors in photography, and he was kind of one of them for jiu-jitsu for me. And I've had some in the beer world too that kind of did the same thing for a number of years. And they said, yeah, let's do it together. We'll bring you up and just shoot together and have fun. And the more photographers in the scene at that time, it's kind of the scarcity mentality of a lot of people had scarcity mentality where you didn't want to have competitors, but the healthy mentality, like most, good businesses are, the more players in the game, the better everybody gets. And, if you can foster those relationships, everybody's working together. You see it in the beer world a lot where a lot of breweries are coming up and everybody's like, when's the beer bubble popping? It's like, well, everybody's working together. So nobody's, enemies. Nobody's trying to, shoot anybody in the foot. So
honestly, it's funny because it seems like jiu-jitsu is going through the same thing right now where we got Gordon Ryan's trying to make it big. We got a lot of guys trying to grow jiu-jitsu and make it more popular as a sport, more more feasible to make a living off of it. So it's kind of cool how, that's definitely translates.
Oh yeah. I'm the worst at like jiu-jitsu celebrities. If you pretty much say Gordon Ryan, Nicky Rod, and maybe two other names, I'll know what you're talking about. But I'm the worst at the celebrities of my own sport. Like I don't recognize anybody's names.
Yeah. It definitely needs some help, growing for sure. It's like, even with like the UFC roster and stuff like that, like I'll notice like until guys get into like the top 10 or even sometimes top 5, I'm like, who is that guy? And they're like, bro, they just beat the best in the world or something. It's like, sorry, bro. Like I'm bad with names as like,
Yeah, so, same.
Yeah,
but then we have people in our gym that are so obsessed with the sport and the celebrities and who's competing, who's in the top 20 of purple, black, and brown. And like, you have all of these, they'll just put off names and like, oh, did you see that match? This and this and this. And I'm like, I don't know who any of those names are. Like, I'm sorry. I'd love to watch them. I bet they're super cool to watch. And I'll learn some stuff, but I don't keep up. I have, too many things going on to keep up with the names.
For sure. Do you travel around a lot for your photography? Like, or is it mostly New England? Like, how's that work?
Mostly New England. I do a couple of things out of the state and out of the country throughout the year. Like there's a beer fest in Iceland that we do every year. I bring my partner to, and I've been shooting it before we were together, but basically in June, we do this big beer fest. And unfortunately the trip got canceled this year because the airline companies canceled our flights 2 nights in a row, but kind of a whole cluster. This was like literally last weekend. Yeah. Instead we have like a staycation. It was a lot of fun. But that's one thing. I love doing that. We go to this beer fest. It's like this little tiny island off of the south of Iceland. So it's like kind of this wonderland of fairy tale place. But other than that, mostly New England, a lot of Maine weddings, a lot of New Hampshire weddings, some Massachusetts, a lot of tournaments in, Mass and New Hampshire.
For sure.
The time that this airs, what are we thinking? Next week, right? So we've got a couple in the queue that we're going to drop, but we're going to drop this July 9th. So it'll already be after NEF. Are you going to be at the next NEF on July 8th?
Yep. I'll be the photographer for NEF. Yep.
Sweet. Well, I'll see you there. We'll both be there. So that'd be really cool to see that. As far as, so do you do many like jiu-jitsu competitions still? I know you said you had a couple back in the day, but is that still something you follow, or is it just the MMA now, or and weddings and stuff like that?
It's everything really. I still do the Tap Cancer Red every year in Boston. I'm their photographer. It's been a few years in a row, so I hope John Thomas will keep me going on that because that's such a fun event to shoot. It's such a great group of people to work with, but. I'll go up to the Flow sub tournaments up in Rockland. I'm nobody's official photographer other than Tap Cancer out and NEF. I'm nobody's official photographer. So I'll go and shoot tournaments anywhere that we have guys competing. I don't really compete myself. I'm 33. I don't have the time to dedicate to training full time or to really get in the shape that other black belts of my age and weight and rank will be at this point. So I don't want to waste my money or their time. And so I'm definitely embracing the coach mentality and, being an asset to, having media for people or athletes, things like that. And then being a good coach, hopefully, if I can be. But if we're going to tournaments, I'm bringing my camera, I'm doing photo, video, everything, giving it to anybody who needs it. I'm already there anyway. So it's kind of like I can't go to a concert without needing to shoot it because I've shot so many concerts before. Like I just can't be there without like being like, that photographer needs to be over there because they're about to do this move, and like and I freak out in my head. Yeah. So it's like weddings. Like I can't go to a wedding without bringing a camera somehow because I just feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. So you said you don't compete, and then you said you do coach. Is this your own gym, or are you run your own academy?
No. I don't have my own gym yet. I'm just a first degree black belt. I call myself a TA. People are like, we have some purple belts who I don't know if they're joking around, but they're like Professor Moore. And I'm like, I'm just a TA. Like I haven't graduated to professor status yet. Our instructor is, I think 2 or 3 years away from getting his coral belt. So I'm not even close to to that echelon. But I train at Alexi Cruz, BJJ in Westbrook primarily, but I do train around local gyms like up in Team Lawton, Evo in Saco, Recon in Westbrook, sometimes at the Academy in the early morning classes. So, you get the times in when you can and keep that community spirit going.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Love the cross training. I always find it really weird when people or like coaches don't allow their guys to cross train. It's just it's a weird thing. Like it definitely makes your jiu-jitsu better.
Mm-hmm.
I think at least.
Yeah. My instructor is Brazilian. He was Ricardo De La Riva's first white to black belt. He gave black belts before Alexi, but not from start to finish. And so Alexi was his first start to finish, which is funny because he's teaching De La Riva guard now this week, but he doesn't really do that often. But our gym is so comfortable playing De La Riva guard that it's really interesting to see the styles of and I say this is the best part about cross training, and I'll get to the point in a minute because I do this a lot, but cross training, you see all these styles and you get to go, oh, these guys are sport jiu-jitsu versus wrestlers versus this, competition based versus laid back. And it kind of gives you a well-rounded feeling. But Alexi in the beginning definitely wasn't as keen on cross training. And I think that was sort of an old school mentality that he brought up from Brazil. And I can understand why, where he came from and what that meant at the time. But over time, I think the jiu-jitsu community's grown and he's grown with it. So he's definitely been more comfortable with us cross training. We show a lot of loyalty to him. We train there pretty much 90% of the time. If, those of us who do cross train, so he does see our faces more than, most people. So I think it's okay that we cross train in other places and, bring back knowledge and shift and kind of have fun.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good. Especially, in your situation, I'm sure it's almost necessary to cross train. You're not there all the time. So I'm sure that's really good.
Traveling or just class times, some class times you can't make it, and maybe we don't have new classes on a Thursday, so I'm like, well, who has got a new class on Thursday, because I have to work tonight and I can't go to night class, so it's a lot of, when you're working from a bunch of different things, it's good to be flexible and have good relationships with all these gyms so you can go in there without, with open arms and people welcoming cross training.
Mm-hmm. Curious that earlier you mentioned that, jiu-jitsu helps your creativity with photography and vice versa. Photography has helped your jiu-jitsu. Just curious how, could you pinpoint one thing about photography for jiu-jitsu that has helped your get better? Does that make sense? I'm not sure if
I don't know if I'm answering the question completely correctly, but for instance, if I'm at a wedding, weddings are a whole beast. And once you get there, you're there and you are getting told what to do for 8 hours. And I kind of love that, where it's it's a lot of money exchanged, a lot of prep, a lot of you get schedules ahead of time and you meet with the bride, you meet the groom, maybe you meet with the mother of the bride and groom separately, all of these things. And if you're shooting 20 weddings, all of these events are important to these people forever. So when you get there, it's there's a lot of pressure, a lot of prep, just like a tournament. And you got to pivot really quickly sometimes where maybe this isn't ready or that's not ready. And you have to quickly be okay with switching lenses or this or that, or just holding up somebody's, if they need things moved in the reception area because nobody did that, you're okay, cool, I'll do that right now and just prep this because I want this photo right now. You have to be able to just sort of be on the move and be on the balls of your feet all the time and just be happy about it. Even if someone's kind of mean or everybody's stressed, right? It's a wedding day. Everybody's stressed. You just you're I'm the only one not stressed because I'm trying to just do what I can, but everybody else, they've prepped way longer than I have and they've spent way more money. So they got to be more stressed and more in their head. And so just like a tournament, those butterflies, those nervousness, you meet the bride beforehand and she's usually I need a drink, I'm super nervous. And it's yeah, I get it. Before a tournament, man, I'm about to throw up sometimes. I understand that. It's a big moment. And for both, sort of things. And there's a lot of I don't know. I think it's people, people being people in both scenarios, and just dealing with your emotions and how you deal with like stressful situations in a wedding or in a tournament or something. But yeah, being able to be flexible is a big thing. And I think jiu-jitsu has definitely helped me. Like things go sideways and you're like, well, all right, like now he's got side control. This sucks. Let's figure this out.
Right. So realistically, the jiu-jitsu and learning how to problem solve has helped the photography more than, I don't know if you'd agree with this or not, but then the photography has helped creativity for jiu-jitsu. Would you agree with that?
I would say with photography, I deal with photography both creatively and analytically, where like I obsess over my camera. I know how to use my camera, which is like as soon as I'm like, I want to get the setup right, and I'm like, I can use my camera as a webcam. I've never done it before. It took me 10 minutes, looked it up, boom. I knew the settings. Where's the camera right there? And so it's one of those things where like I just like jiu-jitsu, I like deep dive into like YouTube video after YouTube video of a certain technique that I'm trying that I want to work, and I get people's perspective, and then I really sort of just deep learn it. Just like if I get a new lens, I'm like, how do I use this lens so deeply where like if I'm on the field, I can immediately know how to get that shot right away, versus not like tinkering and toying around and seeing if this works or that. I can immediately go, yep, I got that lens for that, this, and this, because I have like I ADHD or AD, whatever it is. I hate those terms, but like, everybody says they, so it doesn't matter. But hyper learning is what I call it, and I think I go on rants, but I've seen this a lot with like people who are in professions like dentists or doctors or lawyers, where they know how to learn for 10 years and then start a business. And that's like jiu-jitsu in a nutshell. It's like you got to train 10 years and then you start getting good.
Yeah.
And they like understand that from day one, and they're like, yeah, I can obsess over something for 10 years and then start to teach it. And that sort of hyper learning translates pretty well over many things in life.
Absolutely. And it does sound like you're saying hyper learning. It sounds like you like to hyper focus on things like the photography and like, obsess over that. And then like jiu-jitsu, dive into that and get really good. And, you just mentioned watch 100 YouTube videos on how to do it. I'm a lot of the same way with when it comes to, editing and trying to get the podcast up and running. And then, like even jiu-jitsu, just study and try to get it as good as possible. So that resonates pretty well with me, at least. Yeah. But
yeah.
So next week, all right, run us through like a process for next week. Are you doing weigh-ins as well?
I'm doing weigh-ins. Yeah.
Okay. So what is your process in preparation, getting ready for that whole event, weigh-ins, the whole night? Like when do you show up? What are you trying to capture at weigh-ins? What are you trying to get through the fights? Just let us know about that.
For NEF, if it's not in Lewiston, if it's in the Portland area, typically the weigh-ins are in the Westbrook Community Center, which is a fantastic, public space where people can rent out their space for different things. And NEF usually uses them because they're super nice, and I've been allowing them to use it for a long time. My prep is just have batteries full, memory cards empty, and a bunch of flashes ready to go just in case one fails. If he needs, typically in the weigh-ins, he needs the white background for me, which is like the portrait shots that they use for the posters. And it's easier to get them all while they're weighing in versus like ahead of time. And it's kind of like wrangling cats ahead of time, but the weigh-ins aren't much dissimilar to herding cats as well. But everybody's super hungry, super thirsty. They just want to weigh in. They don't want their photo taken. But you got to be like, hey man, like you got to be happy. Like, the process of the weigh-in photos is like, you got to be, I love knowing all the fighters ahead of time, because they know like, I'm trying to get my job done. I'm trying to get it quick. Usually it's the fighters who have no idea. They never met me before. And they're just like, they have this like mentality of like, let's just get this done, man. And it's like, yeah, I know. I'm just trying. I want you to eat too. Don't worry. Like I'm just as hungry sometimes. And I get it. So I'm not trying to waste your time. I'm just like, let's do this. And I have a process of like, they get weighed in, go to the logo wall, shoot them facing each other. And then if I need one of them for the white wall, bring them up the white wall. Just, it's like a assembly line where it's like they do the weigh-ins. Just next to that is the logo wall. Just next to that is the white wall. I have all my lights set up. I switch from mode 1 to 2 on the flash. So mode 1 is logo wall. Mode 2 is the white. So if I need your headshot, portrait, whatever for posters for NEF promotions, get you to the white wall, get those 3 or 4 poses done, boom, done. Next people weighing in. At that point, they've already weighed in and they're waiting for me at the logo wall. And I just go boom, boom, boom. And it's just like back and forth, switching like light functions from 1 to 2, depending on, because like the logo wall needs one setting of lights for that. Right. And then the white wall needs another one because it syncs with the other 2 lights. So I have a single light on the camera that I just sort of switch between the modes. And then I just like boom, 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 boom. And if things happen, you got to pivot like, okay, this fighter isn't there. Okay, next. Okay, I can get that guy doing face-offs, but not with an opponent. Because usually face-off is like 2 people and then one and then the other individually. Yeah. So if one's there, I can get him, but not the face-off. So, okay, I'll get that done. I need him for the white wall. Great. And the next people. So you have all these like scenarios of like, because fighters get, I think, up to an hour to show up and weigh in. Yeah. And some of them take the full hour, which is understandable if you're having a difficult weight cut potentially. And, I've seen every scenario on the books in 2 years. I didn't think I would see some of these scenarios so soon, but yeah, it's been some crazy weight cuts in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I don't miss my days of wrestling, and I don't miss my days of competing. So I'll say that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of chaos that you're able to control. Like I'll be honest, like I have never noticed. And this is me. I'm blind when I'm doing the pictures. Like I take my glasses off, I don't see anything. So you could have fooled me and told me you had a whole crew with you because I don't ever notice it seems like you're doing so much. I don't notice that. Maybe it's because I'm hungry. Maybe it's, I'm just like, all right, let's go eat or something. But I really do think you handle it very well. Like with those pictures, you do all those pictures and then you do, like you said, the move on and everybody's got to do the headshots and stuff. It seems flawless on my end, at least. Again,
it's gotten better.
I'm hungry, you do it well.
It's gotten better over the last 2 years. I definitely did not do the best job at the beginning, and just like everything else, you have to learn and get better over time. And Matt's pointed that out. He's been really honest and good with me and working, really well with me. And I couldn't be more thankful. But he's been saying like every time it's like, man, you're getting better at that. You're getting better at this. And I'm like, thanks, man. Like that's what I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to get better at all these processes. So for me, it's easy. And like I can then bring this whole setup and process to Bangor if NEF is in Bangor or Lewiston and like make it just as seamless or immediately get these photos out to him within like an hour and then, fight. Because I know the importance of these photos to him, but obviously to the fighters. Like the fighters want those photos immediately to push tickets, immediately to push promotion. They have all these sponsors. I get the weight of what the photos and media mean to these people. And that is I don't know. I think it's a big responsibility for me to be like, okay, I need to get these photos out. These guys need to show their sponsors love. They got to show these like, hey, we're ready tomorrow. They just did all the work for months and I just need to do work for like a couple hours. Like I'm definitely getting away with murder there in that sort of scenario, but they did the work. Like I know how it is to train. And I've been in the rooms where like, dude, no stosis conditioning, unbelievable. Yeah. I can't do that right now. Like not even close. And so like, if those guys went through that for 6 months, I can shoot photos for a couple hours and get it done. That's fine.
That's sick, dude. I just had a question escape my mind. Oh no, it was a good one too. I was gonna say, the posters. So, do you, when you say you edit them, do you edit the posters, or do you edit the picture and send it to them, and then someone else edits like the poster? You know what I'm saying? Like
I do the photography, and someone else does the posters. I believe the company that NEF works through is Todorico Creative. Owned by Michael Todorico, and I think his wife works with him as well. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but they're fantastic people. Michael also comes from the beer world, and he runs a lot of media for like Sebago, and I think he used to do a lot of media for like Liquid Riot. So I've worked with Michael in the past, and it's funny that like I see him in all these beer events, and then I go to NEF and I see him too, and I'm like kind of best of both worlds. But he doesn't do any of it. Like he doesn't work at a brewery. He doesn't work at and like as a fighter or jiu-jitsu person, but he works in both worlds in the creative sense. And it's kind of cool to see that. But yeah, I tell fighters to keep it simple with them. They're like, "Oh, do you do the posters?" I'm like, "Nah, NEF has got a bunch of Photoshop wizards in the basement, and they just like create them super quickly."
Yeah, that's sick, dude. They're local as well in Maine or New
Yep,
England.
they're local. I believe out of Portland, or just outside of Portland, perhaps. But yeah, Michael typically works around Portland.
Sweet, sweet deal. Well, I'm sure they appreciate getting the good pictures, and high quality images for those posters. I know
Yeah.
from personal experience, getting the crappy images, because I do a local jiu-jitsu tournament down here. I do the posters for them, and getting like super crappy images is just like the biggest headache. And so I'm sure they really appreciate you there.
It's not just high quality, but it's the turnaround time. Because again, like if I wait 3 days after editing a photo, and then it has to go to the Photoshop people to then create the image, and maybe that's another day or two. So they don't. If I wait my time and I take my sweet time, then they get posters delayed all this time, and so that's why the turnaround time is just as important as the quality of the work. And so I try to make sure I get everything done within like 8 hours or sooner, just for this particularly. And Matt takes care of me monetarily for sure for doing that. And yeah, it's a great relationship, and it makes sure that everybody gets to share their promotional stuff like super quickly. And it's just with photography in general, you have to like set that time aside pretty soon after you do an event to do the editing, so that that, especially video, like you can't separate the time, because then your brain isn't in this creative space when you created it as much. And so now you're getting back into that space. You're trying to remember the context and remember the feeling and how you wanted the video to go when you're recording it. And there's sort of a disconnect versus like, if I go home, I want to record that. I want to dump the footage now. I want to start at least dragging some stuff on the timeline, doing a lot of the bulk work, and then like later on doing like the nitty gritty fine work. And then hopefully getting something turned out pretty quickly, which, still I can get quicker, but everybody can get quicker at stuff.
I don't know. You're definitely fast. Like I've noticed stuff go really fast, at least in my personal experience. Were you about to say something?
I mean, I can tell you. So down here, seems to be a massive growth of, especially like super fights for jiu-jitsu. And I can tell you, I feel like your work is underappreciated because a lot of these, there's a few standout tournaments that really, like, you can tell they put time in. They have good photography. They have good posters, good pictures. And it's crazy how much that boosts the professionalism of the tournament. So definitely your work is very appreciated there. Definitely. It makes me as a competitor much more willing to go back to a tournament if I feel like, okay, these guys are taking it, and I feel like you're definitely a major part of that.
Absolutely.
And I think NEF is sort of not just with photography, but with other aspects of their tournament. Not tournament, but MMA fights and the promotion itself. They've been really upping their production for everything. Like, they have a videographer now every time that does the post-fight interviews and does the pre-fight interviews now. They just started doing that. And they do, highlight reels and everything else that they never did before. So they're trying to add more stuff over time to really add value to not just the people watching, but the competitors. So the competitors like the promotion more. They start to fight for them more. And, because competitors can sort of shop around now. There's so many fighting leagues that you can go to in the Northeast that never were around 10 years ago. But, NEF was around, but like, Art of Scrap, other sort of big leagues that are really professional, really good, and they put a lot of money into their production. And NEF is, they evolve, and that's a really good thing. NEF saw that and they're evolving.
Absolutely. I've definitely made mention of that to Matt several times over the last year and a half, 2 years. Like I've noticed it just every event, it seems like they have something new to add to the production. It seems like you said, videos, the interviews, the pre and post fight. I love their backdrop when they're doing the interviews, and then the photography, obviously the posters, all the graphics that they put in ahead of time. It's amazing stuff. It's good stuff. They're definitely pushing a really high quality product, I think, with their whole thing.
Absolutely.
Well, we're running we're running late on time.
Gotcha.
Any shout outs, any Instagram, Facebook, all your links, your own business, all that. Just go ahead. The floor is yours before we let you go.
Yeah, thanks. I go on rant, so sorry that we went a little bit over time.
Oh no, no worries, no worries. We love it all. We love it all.
I used to have a podcast back in the day with the owner of Mommy, the Japanese restaurant here, who's one of our brown belts, and Alex, who works for Bissell Brothers currently, and one of our purple belts. We had a podcast called Plethora, and we do like 3 or 4 hour long episodes. Yeah. So I'm just used to that format. And Joe Rogan, everybody's used to those long formats now, which got me really good at not saying as much when it comes to this. It's funny. Like you go through, when you do a podcast for a little while, you start to efficiently use your words better over time.
Yeah.
But I'm on Facebook. I have kind of 2 digital entities online. One is Active Beer Geek for the longest time. I started that when I was 21. You can find that on, any platform, Facebook, Instagram. Active Beer Geek is the moniker that's been sort of my influencer, if you will, in the beer world sort of thing. I hate the word influencer, but it's the most accurate, I guess.
Sure.
Benmore Media is basically everything not beer. I noticed when I started posting weddings and headshots and jiu-jitsu stuff in the beer page, everybody didn't care, and it got like no likes. And so I had to separate the 2 things. And I have people who have no idea one or the other exists. It's crazy. Like my jiu-jitsu people don't know I'm a beer person for 10 years. And like vice versa. It's kind of funny. Because they're very in their own like niche. But Benmore Media is what I'm what I have for Facebook, Instagram, website too. The websites are coming soon. It's like a shoe cobbler with, not having their own shoes. Like I build people's websites, but I don't have my own websites finished. So I got to work on those in the next few weeks. But
Absolutely. Dude, I'm actually checking. Like you just said, I did not know you had the Active Beer Geek Instagram page. It's looking like what we should have done in preparation having you on is like tried some beers out with you, had maybe mail some. We got to have you on again and just do this.
Dude, we should do like a live one.
Next.
June 8th, if you're going to be there early, I'll be there at 4. Typically I'm sitting around for nothing, like it's like a hurry up and wait thing during the day of. And if we maybe have a laptop, I got like a USB extender. I got my portable mic. We'll probably work out a setup.
Honestly, we'll get a media pass for Juice Monkeys. We'll get you in early so we can all get in there, drink some beer, and bro out again in preparation for NEF. That is a vibe all around. Let's get that set up. Let's talk to Matt.
Let's get Matt on the podcast, dude. That's like a whole thing. Like my brain's working right now. Like my entrepreneurial brain is just like, let's get Matt on there. Let's get Nick. Let's get everybody.
Let's do it, man. I love the ideas, man. The creativity. I love it. This is awesome. Definitely going to have to make all this happen. Dude, that's sick. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm geeking out now. I'm like, all right, let's try some good beer. Let's get some some new people on here.
Yes,
but we really do appreciate having you on, man.
Thank you.
Again, like this was an awesome experience. A lot like a new angle. It felt like
for sure.
But again, thank you very much for coming on, brother. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate everything.
All right,
Thanks, man.